Alrighty, hello everybody. Welcome back to the Comfy Cozy Welcome back to the Comfy Cozy Chill podcast. I'm your host Maya Schaefer, and it's been a few weeks since we talked. The last time, or the week I was supposed to post, which was 2 weeks ago. I was moving that week, so I didn't really have time to record and edit a video or an episode while trying to pack and everything. It was just too crazy, and I just had too much stuff going on that week, so it was hard to find the time to pack and everything. But I'm back, baby. And this week I have an episode I'm really excited for. It's the first episode where I cover a series instead of just a standalone novel. So I'm very excited for that. So let's dive in, shall we? So the series I'm going to be covering today is The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater. It's about a group of teenagers who are trying to find a sleeping Welsh king who's been rumored to be buried on landlines in the fictional town of Henrietta, Virginia. So the first book covers them pretty much, meeting each other and kind of diving into this search, and then the other 3 books are just about them trying to find this king and their friendship going stronger and other relationships happening and all of this sort of stuff. I should have mentioned it's a young adult fantasy novel, and there's 4 books, and it has one spin-off series, the Dreamer Trilogy, which covers one of the characters, Ronan. It's more about him. I haven't read it yet, but I am intrigued by it after rereading this series last year. So yeah, I'll just dive into some of the characters first. I'm going to be talking about the main 5 characters, or 4 characters. Blue, Gansey, Adam, Ronan, and Noah. Those are the teens who are looking for this Welsh king. So Blue comes from a family of psychics who all have psychic powers except for her, but she's able to amplify their energy, which makes her kind of like special, and she's definitely a crucial piece to them. When we first meet Blue, she's with her half-aunt on a ghost watch where the psychics can see who's going to die within the next year, and since Blue doesn't have any psychic abilities, she can't see any of these spirits, and she's just supposed to write down who they're seeing so that they can alert them to let them know that, hey, you might want to get your affairs in order. But she does see one boy about her age, and her aunt tells her that since she can see this boy, she will either be his true love or she will kill him. And she's also been told by all of her psychic family that she's destined to kill her true love, which is a terrible curse. So if she kisses her true love, he will die pretty much, and to live with that your whole life. But she seems pretty okay with it. She seems like she's never really been interested in romance or love or that sort of thing. She kind of marches to the beat of her own drum. She's kind of spunky, doesn't really fit in at school, and she's totally okay with that. She just wants to go off and do her own thing. So yeah, I really like her a lot. I don't know, she's kind of the girl that you want all of your main characters to be, but she doesn't have main character vibes, even though she is one of the main characters. She's just honestly doesn't really care what people think about her. She wears really fun clothing, and she's a pretty badass female character. And she does play a lot into the series with her amplifying abilities, and her psychic family does help a lot when trying to find these ley lines because their energy is kind of connected to the psychic energy. So she's definitely like a key character and a key member of the group, which I love for her, because the other 4 characters in the group are all teenage boys, and she's like the one girl, and she kind of has to like speak up to be heard, but is also like one of the guys. So I don't know, I love her as a character. The next character is Richard Gansey Campbell III, but he goes by Gansey, and he is kind of the group leader of the Raven Boys, and the glue that keeps this misfit group together. Or he comes from money, but he doesn't really want anything to do with it. His mom is a state senator, and he's happy to like make appearances, but it's kind of just a big chore to him because he would much rather spend all of his time searching for this lost king. He doesn't make a big show of that he comes from money. He drives a really crappy car that is always constantly breaking down, and he lives in a rundown manufacturing building. But he does do some things that remind us that he comes from money, just like throws his money around and doesn't really mean to. But with the character like Blue, who his family doesn't have really any money and is from this small town, it really makes like you really see the differences between those two, especially when it comes to that. And when it comes to Adam Parrish, one of his friends, who goes to school with Gansey, and he doesn't really have a lot of money, but he doesn't want to accept pity or handouts from Gansey or really anybody. So you see like the difference between the wealth and the not so wealthy, but that doesn't really play a big part into the story. It plays into the character development more than the plot, I would say. But back to Gansey. So he has traveled all over the world and worked with many historians to find this Welsh king, and believes that the king saved his life 7 years prior after he was stung by a hornet, which he is deadly allergic to, because he was dying on a ley line. And there's a quote, I didn't like look up the actual quote, so I'm just paraphrasing, but he heard something along the lines of, "You will live when you are meant to die, because someone else who is meant to live is dying," at the same time that Gansey was stung by a hornet and had like a terrible allergic reaction. Actually, I think it was a hornet's nest. Anyway, he had a deadly allergic reaction to this, and so he has kind of made it his life's mission to find this Welsh king, and I guess like thank him for saving his life, or ask him like, why did you save my life, like what makes me so special. One of those two, or maybe both. But I really like Gansey a lot. I think he is a great character. He's very brave, he's charismatic, he is the glue that keeps this whole group together, because really without him there wouldn't be a Raven Boys group. There wouldn't be the Raven cycle without Gansey, let's just say that. And sometimes he does the wrong thing or says the wrong thing, which takes him off of a pedestal that he could be on amongst his friends. He's kind of already a little bit on a pedestal, because just like his background financially and familially, if that's even a word. But the fact that he sometimes says the wrong thing or does the wrong thing or gets so caught up in like trying to find this Welsh king that he does one of those things and takes him off a pedestal, makes him a more well-rounded, a more relatable character, I think, than just some hoity-toity rich boy who's just trying to find this king just because he can. The next character I'm going to talk about is Adam Parrish, who I briefly mentioned before. He, like Blue, doesn't come from a lot of money, and he doesn't accept pity or handouts. He also comes from an abusive home, so he kind of like doesn't really believe in himself, and kind of like, I don't want to say sees himself as weak, but doesn't see himself as strong as Gansey or their other friend Ronan. And he feels like he has to work twice as hard academically to be the top of the class because he is on scholarship. And he has like multiple part-time jobs that he's working just so he can like help pay for school and save up money to get out of Henrietta. But once he became friends with Gansey and started looking for this Welsh king, he started to feel a sense of belonging, is what I felt was happening with his character. And he's a very complex character that you don't really expect right away. Like, I don't know, I didn't think that he would become such a key player in the series like he did. And you can't help but feel sorry for him. But you really can't, because he's become such a strong, extraordinary character as the series goes on. And he really steps up to challenges that are thrown at him, whether that's with his family or school or trying to find this Welsh king. Especially in the third book, I would say, he really steps up to the challenges and consequences of the actions that he made at the end of the first book. I think he's a great character. I think he's someone that you don't expect, but then you like really learn to love him and root for him, and you just want him to be happy. And then my fourth character is the third member of the Raven Boys. It's Ronan Lynch. He's also a student and friends with Adam and Gansey, and he's not very friendly. He's blunt. He's irrational. He doesn't really think things through. He's like the all-around bad boy type. Like, he's got a shaved head, huge, tall, big, muscly guy. He's got a big tattoo on his shoulder. I think he got to piss like his older brother off. He's very angry and very angry is what I'm gonna say there. But you learn that his father died when he was young, and after that happened, that him and his two brothers were sent away from their home and their mother. And their home was kind of like a utopia for Ronan. Like, I don't think he had ever been happier than when he was like living on this farm with his family. And then after his father dies and he's sent away, he just becomes very angry, but also full of pain, because I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, he is the one that found his father in their driveway. So he's just full of anger and full of pain. I'd say resentment. But he doesn't really show any other emotions other than that until later on in the series. So trust me, stick with the series just to see Ronan's character development. He doesn't really get along with his older brother at all, but adores his younger brother, and he only really lets his guard down around Adam. I think because they can relate to each other in some sense. Like, they both know that they don't really fit in and that they're only together because they're friends with Gansey, but they just like can relate to each other on a different sense. They're both connected magically to this forest that they find in the first book. One other big thing about Ronan is that he can take things out of his dreams, and that's pretty much what the whole second book is about and plays into the plot a lot. In the last book, that's pretty, like, book 2 and book 4 are big about this fact that he can take things out of his dreams, as well as the Dreamer trilogy, the spin-off series. First book in that is called Call Down the Hawk, and the second book I believe is called Mr. Impossible. I'm looking that up right now. Yeah, Call Down the Hawk is book 1, and then Mr. Impossible is book 2, and that comes out sometime this year, 2021. I want to say either this month or May, I believe, but sometime within the next few months. So if you read the Raven cycle and you really enjoy it, you could possibly also enjoy the Dreamer trilogy, which like I said, I haven't read it yet, but I did see the first book at the library today and I almost grabbed it. But I have so many other books that I want to read first and don't want to dive right into a series. So, and then the last character is Noah. I don't want to give too much away about his character because there is a bit of a plot twist with him at the end of book 1, but he's kind of quiet. He's always in the background, always watching. He, like I said, he doesn't say much, but he is connected a lot to Blue throughout the whole series. They become like best buddies. He's kind of like a sullen figure, but like I said, I don't want to give too much away about him because he does have a bit of a plot twist at the end of book 1. He's a huge sweetheart though, and he would really do anything for his friends. So I love that for him, especially like knowing what happened to him. But yeah, he's a great character too. All of this book is just full of like a great group of main characters who would do anything for each other, really. And one of the big like tropes that it follows that's pretty popular right now that I've seen on like TikTok and stuff is the found family trope. So if you're looking for something that covers that trope, I would highly recommend this series, just because they become so connected looking for this Welsh king, that they basically become one another's family just because they're spending so much time with each other. It does also have a bit of some LGBTQ representation later on, which we love. It's got fast cars, spunky girls, some bad boys. There's a hitman in book 2. There's a crazy Welsh witch in book 3. Lots and lots and lots and lots of magic. If you're looking for a series with a love triangle, it's got it between Blue, Adam, and Gansey. This book is also, like I said, it's young adult fantasy, but it doesn't take place in like a fantasy world like a lot of other young adult books do. So I think that if you're like me and you don't read a lot of fantasy, because a lot of fantasy takes place in like alternate worlds or like worlds that don't exist, so you kind of veer away from it because it's kind of confusing to me. But I love this series because it takes place in like the current real world, so it's a little bit easier for me to understand, but it's so full of magic. It finds magic in the actual real world, and things that are like actually out there, like ley lines and tarot and like Welsh myths. And I don't know, that's why I love it so much, because it meets like the part of me that like really loves fantasy and like wants to read fantasy, but I'm not bogged down and confused by all these other components. Sorry. And I don't really hear many people talk about it. This series came out, the first book came out in I think 2012 or 2011, and the last book came out in 2016. But I don't see a lot of people talk about it online. And I would say it's probably one of Stiefvater's like more popular series. She has the Raven cycle, and then she also has the Shiver trilogy, which is about werewolves, and then she has the books of Fairy, which are about fae. She's got a couple of standalone books, and then she has the Dreamer trilogy, and she has a like middle grades book. But I think the Raven cycle is probably one of her definitely her more popular series. And the Dreamer trilogy's gotta be like right behind it, just because they're like connected. And that one's the newest. And then I read this series when I was, I believe, a senior in high school. I read the first 3 books, and the last book hadn't come out yet, and I got the first 3 from the library. So then by the time the last one came out, I was probably away at college. So I wasn't like back home, and I couldn't get it from the library, and I kind of just like forgot about it, like you do. So I heard a rumor that there was going to be a TV adaptation, and I wanted to read the books again, so I ended up buying all of them last year just so I could have them and reread them whenever I wanted, because I really enjoyed them, the first 3 the first time. So so like I said, there was rumored to be a TV adaptation, and in 2017 it was announced that it was in production with Catherine Hardwicke to direct and produce, and Andrew Miller as the showrunner, and to be distributed by Warner Brothers Domestic Television. That was a lot. That was a mouthful. And Catherine Hardwicke also directed the first Twilight movie, so I mean, I'd be down for that, you know. And then in November 2019, Stiefvater had written a pilot, and in spring 2020, Stiefvater confirmed that production had stopped. I don't know if that means that it just had to stop due to COVID, or if it had stopped because it had finished. That's just what Wikipedia told me. I didn't really look that far into that. But I would love it if this got made into a TV adaptation. I think that it would be so good. You'd have, bam, four seasons right off the bat. You could have a spinoff with the Dreamer trilogy. It would definitely have some Outer Banks vibes, where it's like a treasure hunt, but also like magic, because they're like sidekicks and ley lines and people taking stuff out of their dreams, and I don't know, it would just be so good. Like, I can see it now. I mean, it takes place in Virginia, but like a Pacific Northwest kind of vibe, and Virginia, of course, like kind of something dark and moody, and I don't really know. I'm just chatting right now. I don't really know what's happening, but I can't explain it, but I can see it in my head and what it would be like, and it would be so good. I would watch the shit out of that, let me tell you. I'm not one to watch series right when they come out, but I would stay up until the exact moment that it drops and binge it that whole day. I mean, that's what would happen. I wanted to dive more into why they're looking for this sleeping Welsh king, because I didn't really put that in my notes as I'm looking. Other than Gansey trying to find him to like thank him or ask him like what his purpose is, why did he save him? Also, whoever finds this Welsh king can and wakes him up gets a wish. Like anything they want is what the rumor is to be. So that's also, I think, a little bit why Adam is like trying to find him because he wants to wish for like a better life and just doesn't want to struggle anymore. I think Ronan's just trying to find him just because Gansey wants to find him, and he'll pretty much do anything that Gansey wants just because Gansey's made such an impact on his life. Blue, she just seems to be along for the ride. If I'm being honest, she doesn't really seem like she wants anything out of it. Maybe to go to college and not have to worry about money like Adam, but from what I remember, that's the only thing. And like I said, Noah's along for the ride too. The bad guy in book 1 also knows about this Welsh king. So the entire time he's trying to find him and he's trying to like figure out what Gansey knows, and because like Gansey's pretty much like an expert on it at this point. And then the other like villain characters in the other books are also trying to find this Welsh king. So they're just all really up against like these teenagers and then these like older adults just all trying to find this Welsh king so that they can like have a wish granted or have magic or something, be super powerful. I don't know, that, yeah, now that I'm like thinking about it, just let the kids have it, you know. But yeah, so that was the Raven Cycle. It's like one of my favorite series ever. It's definitely a recommended read. I read the first book in a week when I reread it, and then I took a really long time to finish books 2 and 3 just because that's when I started back to school my senior year of college, and then the pandemic happened and like quarantine depression and trying to finish my final semester of my senior year. So yeah, there was a lot going on in the 6 months that it took me to read book 2. But the other 2 books, I would say, took me about a month to read. And I would say that book 1 and book 4 are probably my favorites. Book 2 and book 3 are really good, but like they're supposed to be, they're like filler books, quotation marks, but a lot does happen. And they're very important to this series. I just really like book 1 and book 2, or book 1 and book 4, and you can see like how much they've grown since then, even though it's only like maybe a year. I would say it takes place, definitely probably a year, maybe even just a summer, like a April into October type thing. But yeah, great series, highly recommend. Check it out if you haven't read it. Let's see, I don't know how long I've been recording for. It feels like a really long time. But yeah, I went to the library today, set up an account, put Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo on hold because I want to read the book before the series comes out. But other than that, I've just been working. I started a new show. Me and my boyfriend moved in together, so that's been fun. And I bought a new bookshelf for all my books because I had like 3 or 4 boxes of books in just a really small bookshelf. So we went to IKEA and I bought a bookshelf while I was there because I was like, I can't do this. And my mom made fun of my old bookshelf. So yeah, that's just a little life update with me. And that's all I got. So you can find the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, pretty much anywhere that you can listen to podcasts. Also on the website Anchor FM. I have an Instagram for the podcast at comfy cozy chill _podcast. I have a TikTok account which is just at MK Schaefer, which I'm going to put in the description, where I've been making some book related TikToks to help promote the podcast, and I've been having a lot of fun with those. So keep an eye out for that if you're on TikTok. I haven't really been reading anything, but if you want to follow my Goodreads account and follow my progress when I do read books, I'm going to put that in the description as well, as like always. And that's all I've got, folks. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Happy International Women's Day when I record this, Monday, March 8th. And stay cozy, friends. Alrighty. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.